Okay, so the guys are just waiting for the concrete right now. They're getting all these covered up so we don't have any splashes. When you're doing something like this in between concrete foundation, we got to do this expansion joint right here, so we make sure that the concrete has room to move and we don't have cracks everywhere. We have our concrete house in here every 32 inches, and then these are the J boxes for our lights. So they're gonna go outside of the concrete, and these are gonna be under the concrete for the LED lights. Okay, ya, listo.
Ya está todo listo ya para que traiga el cemento. Traiga.
So the first truck of concrete just showed up. They're doing like final touches over here. You can see on that wall we did rebars, tear-ups. You want to do that whenever you do a wall. The rebar is 16 inches apart on center. That's what you see, and I have a few outlines there on the ground with different spray paint colors, and that's for the guys to remember what the expansion joints are going, where the lights are going. So here we have a time lapse of the guys doing the work. They started with the hardest area to tackle. The reason why is because the truck can only get up to there. You cannot back up further into the corner. So they have to shovel and rake and just pull everything into that corner. A good thing about us for that is right there is where we have our drainage. So they're gonna fill it up with concrete, check for proper drainage to the center of the square where they're standing in there. They were trying to add more water, but since it was cloudy, it was kind of drizzly, and it was not any sun to be forecast to come out. I didn't want them to add too much water because then the concrete will take too long to settle, and when you pour in like this, you don't want to add much water, so that way you let the concrete cure properly. So you can see there they're screening the concrete. I know for some reason the plastic was not adhering to the wall. I guess the same reason, the mist, the drizzle. So I asked them to just be aware of that and go around with the sponge and clean all the concrete that gets splatter onto the white walls. Here you can see them screening back. I was throwing a little bit of water on the ground. It was not drizzling, or we didn't have any fall of rain for a long time, so the moisture was just around on the surface. That's the reason why we were not too concerned about pouring. On that day, there was not any rain forecast for that day. There was a lot of rain forecast for the next day, so we knew if we did it that day, we should be fine. You can see once in a while the guys are just pulling up the rebar so it's not all the way to the ground. Ideally you want to have spacers, but this slab is actually between 5 and 6.5 inches thick. That was the specs, and that was what we beat it on for. We use a total of 3 trucks, which each one has 9.5 cubic yards of concrete. So here he's using the bull float just to start giving it a smooth finish. Again, the guys had a perfect day to work on because it was not sunny, it was not hot, it was not humid, it was just nice and cold for a good workout. Another little section over here where they have to move a lot of the concrete by hand, but not as bad as the other corner. So you can see they use their their mag floats to screed or to level the concrete on the edges, and then they were looking for their elevation pin right there. So that's the reason why they went to find it. You can see the little guy with the brown jacket, he was looking for it. So those at the end, they get pulled out so you don't have any rust marks on the top of the concrete. Our drainage is gonna go from garage door to garage door into the center, which you will see later. There you see a little spray of water, so that way the float can just go pretty smooth. And you can see how wet the concrete is. He's just doing a pass, and that's it. It's not taking too long for him to actually smooth it out.
A la medida de la...
Salió muy mañoso.
Uy, estos son variables que no dejan ir una en blanco.
Mira. ¿Y anda aquel allá arriba?
Mira, pues está bien abajo, ¿viste? Todavía.
Vamos abriendo orillero, yo creo.
Sí, yo le calculé que te iba a decir como a las 5.
No, lo voy a
Ah, por las 7, digo yo.
Sí.
Esta con la que seque.
Sí.
¿Esta?
Las dos.
Y ahorita viene bien.
Here is the guys. Got them some tacos so they can wait for the concrete to set. And for some reason, there is always one guy that keeps working, which I'm not complaining about it, but there's always one guy that keeps working and everybody's just chilling and eating and drinking sodas or water in the meantime. So he's the one that is giving the final finish to everything. I believe by this point he's coming back from the corner, and I think he has already thrown out some salt in there. I gave him the outline of the expansion joints and how I wanted them. You gotta be planning ahead of time for that, because that way you have lines that make sense, but also for the visual, the aesthetics of the concrete finish. But also you got to consider how the concrete is usually tending to crack, so that way you are anticipating where the cracks are going to be showing up, so that way you're not having a nice pattern design and then your cracks go right in the middle of a square. So they're using a string as a chalk line. Here you have, they're marking another expansion joint right there.
¿Qué tal? Mira. Pásale. Ay, el agua. Sí, sí, nada más que quede aquí ya una rematadilla más con el orillero. Sí, aquí para que quede como acá. ¿Con qué le metieron la sal? ¿Con qué le metieron la sal? ¿Trajiste el rodillo para la sal? Ah, sí está. No seca. So to give
to give the concrete the salt finish. This is the salt that you're gonna need. Here you can see there's some broken pieces. You gotta make sure that you get the right one. These are crystals. That's what it says here. It says salt solar crystals. So what you don't want is, you don't want pellets. I think this one, yeah, exactly. See, pellets. So the reason why is because those are round, like little balls. So you want actually like the crystals to be randomly shaped and in size. So when you have the texture at the end for the concrete, it looks uniform, but it doesn't look like little circles or dots. It looks like I forget what it's called, but it's like a more natural finish, and that's the. I'm over here doing it, getting the salt last minute at Lowe's, running the risk of them not having it in stock. I know that this Lowe's has it in stock most of the time, but some other Lowe's and Home Depots, they don't have it all the time, so you gotta be aware of that as well. You gotta take your time before running to one store and then running like a chicken with no head trying to find it. Apenas está secándonos. Baja la línea, no, y allá también. Ahí en la esquina también. No, pues me dijo que iba a poner plástico, porque sí le dije a Alex. Le dije a Alex que iba a estar la línea esta del techo. Y luego ahí cae bastante allá en aquel rincón.
¿Ya no va para el agua o qué?
Yo creo que vas a tener que ponerle plástico. Porque si no, mira ya como el hockey allá también.
Ya nomás que para el agua y le damos una arregladita ahí en la orilla, ¿no va?
Está bueno aquí para tirar la sal.
Sí, ahí luego se ve. Aquí está mejor que acá.
Busqué una tabla para que la limpie. Le voy a aventar la sal. Le tapamos aquí luego.
Ajá.
Con una tabla, le voy a dar esta pasada.
Espera el frame, arriba.
No, el trim, mira, ahí.
El plástico.
Acá hay una
Sí, ese no. Ese no porque es el baseboard. Es el... Todavía tienes un plywood. Ándale. Le hicieron el teque maneque.
Ese sí se merece. No me vaya.
No, está bien esto.
No es que ese cuerpo no me mide, ¿no?
Que no se mide ese
Cuerpo no me mide para mí.
ese patojo es muy inteligente.
Patojo. Here you can see they're spreading the salt and they're using this roller to embed and push in the salt crystals into the concrete. This is something that I don't like to see too much when people are just walking on top of the concrete like that. But at this point, it's been a good amount of hours and it doesn't seem like, but the concrete is pretty set right now. They'll continue to finish the concrete before throwing the salt in there. The problem that we're having right now is we have a little bit of overcast, so the metal roof has thrown a drip line, so that's the reason why they have to finish that area next to the white wall with the 3 windows, because they needed to put this piece of plastic so the finish is not ruined by a drip line that constantly just erodes the finish on the concrete. So that way that takes care of, they can continue working. It's not, like I say, it's not raining, so we don't worry about water just running down the slab. You can see him, he hasn't stopped working since the guys were eating lunch. He just keeps working. He just eat like 1 or 2 tacos and then kept working. I guess he's one of the guys that would just like actually want to finish the job and not wait until the concrete is too hard, too settled to work it. Okay, so I'm back over here the next day. We can see that now even our drainage is working. Got a lot of water going in there. So from this expansion joint that way, everything is just sloping into that drain over there. And then here, this is a good time for checking all this because we have no seating water, which is awesome. The only thing is because we have this roof line coming over here and then it goes into the garage and then it goes into this corner. The only thing that I see the rain kind of messes up, and it's something that you got to be aware, is the water is going down from where it falls here, and the guys even put plastic and they put a bucket, and this is just mud from the guys stepping on it, so it's not like stains. So where the water travels to go out that way, some of the salt was washed. You can see now there is no more salt over here, but we still have some of the crystals that got embedded in there. So everything from this garage, I don't know if I had mentioned it before, but that garage over here is 1.5 inches higher than this garage door over here. So it's not a big deal, but just keep in mind that don't assume if you take that elevation and you want to send it all the way across, that's not gonna be a good idea, because then you're gonna end up 1.5 inches higher than this side. So whenever you're doing concrete, try to make sure that all your base points are actually where they're supposed to be. What the guys did over here is they took this concrete up against the foundation, up against the wall to that height, and then at some point over here where we have this drainage, they drop it. So I mean they raise it up, I'm sorry, to make up for this 1.5 inches higher. So the 1.5 inches higher goes like that, and then it goes in there, and then at some point in there, I think it's from that corner to that corner is where it goes lower to this level over here, which is not a big difference because we have everything sloping into that drainage. And then we have our curve over here, which is going to be, preventing the cars from running over. Our drainage is going to go in the center. The reason why is because it will be almost impossible trying to send it to that corner, because that's what initially the homeowner, or I think the builder wanted. And so we higher over there than on the garage door, so we cannot slope everything that way. So the only solution was have a valley in the center of the pad. You can see the water is going out that way, and then it's coming out. You can see the plywood is all wet down there, super wet from all this moisture. And I'm trying to see if I can find a way to go down there easy, but it hasn't rained that much, because right there where our 4-inch pipe is, it's not bad. I'm gonna see if I can find the cover of the drain. I saw the guys having it somewhere. I'm trying to find it now, just to show. Maybe they left it inside of the garage, I think. Yeah. So what they're gonna do today, they're gonna come over here and they're gonna rip all these forms out. Another thing to consider if you want to do this yourself is they use these turnbuckles. So what these do is they do the bracing before they put all these 2x4s, and by spinning these, you can spin it with a hammer or something long. What it does is extends this end from that end or retracts it. So if you have your wall and it's not 100% straight, you can use this to actually push it in or pull it out
which if you're doing this type of work, I think this is something that you may want to consider, because it makes a big difference on getting everything square and aligned. So I will consider doing that. Okay, we can see here the guys render this wall, which a couple of things, you know, that's my piece of advice, is I'm gonna have them redo it because you can see the strokes of the trout. So that's something that I don't want to see. It looks pretty rough. Another thing that you definitely need to consider, and I'm gonna have him come back over here. So this is the foundation of the house, and this is our new pour. There is no expansion joint line. Whenever you have one structure and you pour concrete and it's another structure, you gotta have at least a straight line delimiting one piece of structure to the other one. Because let's say that we don't do it and they paint all this, or they do a brown coat for the foundation all the way here, we're always going to have a crack. This is always going to crack from up down, always. So the way to do it is, right now it's going to be dry, so I'm going to ask them to run a grinder up and down, and with that we're going to solve the issue of having this crack showing up later. You can see we still have some remainings of salt in here, but we had heavy rain last night, so that is just making it messy for us. So you can see all this mud over here, and it's dry over there and it's wet over here, because here is where all the water comes out. And then the plan, this is something isolated from doing the flat work or doing concrete, but the reason why we have this stopping over here is because we're gonna do pavers towards the front of the house all the way to the street. But when you see why we had to put a curve over here, otherwise the cars, you're running the risk of falling off the edge, you know. Of course here we're gonna fill all this so you have a driveway going in there. And we can see here our conduit for the LED lights.